All right, guys, we're going to read part of chapter 3 today and review what we have worked on so far with reading like an expert. We know that we have talked about engagement, so we want to interact with the text features that we can use to help us understand the text, focusing on genre, thinking about what might happen next based on what we know about that genre. Of course, we're talking sports fiction here. And building our background knowledge. Sometimes we have to do some further research. So I want to talk today because we're going to run into something called allusions today. An allusion is a figure of speech. It makes a reference to people, places, events, or literary works directly or by implying them. And it's up to the audience to make the connection. So again, if you don't have background knowledge in it, it kind of goes right over your head. Here's an example. Someone saying, he's a real Romeo with the ladies. Well, if you don't have any background of who Romeo is and why it may or may not be a good thing to be Romeo with the ladies, you've totally missed the boat. So you had to have some background knowledge of Romeo and Juliet to understand that. All right. So we are actually going to start on page 16, 2 paragraphs from the bottom. I'm going to give you some insight into what happens before that. They're talking about District 22, which is the district that Michael plays for and how big it is. And because it's so vast, they were talking about the fact that there's only 2 members of his team, his Little League team, that actually made this all-star team. And this all-star team is the only one that could go to Williamsport and compete in the Little League World Series. So he and his best friend, who's the catcher, Manny, make the team. In El Grande, it's his pitching day today for the Yankees, and it's against the Red Sox, and the stadium was starting to come to life. So we're starting here with Manny smiled. Here we go. Manny smiled when he saw Michael. Nothing unusual about that. Manny Cabrera always seemed to be smiling, except when he would strike out with the bases loaded, or when he would fail to throw out a runner trying to steal second base. He was almost a head shorter than Michael, 20 pounds heavier at least, and was the best catcher in all of District 22. Some of the players on the other team would occasionally call him No Neck Cabrera, mostly because he didn't have one. Usually they did this when they thought he couldn't hear them. But even when he did, he still had that smile on his face, as if he and the world were in on the same joke. Here comes the superhero now, Manny said as Michael walked across the infield. Woo, 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 Kelvin said, pumping his fist. Which X-Man is he? I forget, Anthony Ferrero said. Wish he was that fine ex-girl Halle Berry, Kel said. Then Kel woo-wooed again, but it seemed to be more for Halle Berry this time than Michael. So there's an example of an allusion. They're referring to this movie X-Men. I've put a picture here. And Halle Berry is the one with the white hair here that they think is cute. So if, again, you don't have background knowledge, or this is something you can kind of skip through and not care about, or you can search a little bit further to understand what connection they were trying to make. Do not start, Michael said. Oh, listen to the starting pitcher telling us not to start, Manny said, like a comedian playing to the crowd of 3. Maybe he's afraid we'll reveal his secret identity. Kelvin Carter was the Clippers' shortstop. His father worked on the grounds crew at Yankee Stadium, which meant he was one of the guys who did the little dance routine to the song YMCA when it was time to rake the infield dirt in the 5th inning. Kelvin said, Dude catches criminals by day, does his bad little league thing by night. Better not let coach find out you threw it from home plate to dead center, Manny said. Who said I did? Michael said. I think I heard it from Katie Couric, Manny said. No, Kel said. It had to be from Oprah. I definitely heard it from Dan Patrick on SportsCenter, Anthony said. Those 3 people that were named are people who are who run their own shows. They're the hosts of their own shows. And so they're trying to make fun of him that it was big news. But it really wasn't huge news, but it was huge for their area. So Michael responds with, Shut up, Michael said, unable to keep a smile down. All of you. I can't believe it wasn't on the front page of the Daily News, Anthony said, which is a really big newspaper. Michael knew there was no sense in fighting them when they got going like this. The best thing to do was to let them have their fun until they ran out of what they thought were hysterically funny lines. Okay, we'll stop, Manny said eventually. But before we do, I have to ask you one question. He got up from the bench, put his catcher's mitt on, which meant he was ready to start getting Michael warmed up. Knock yourself out, Michael said. Manny looked at Kelvin and Anthony, both of whom were already giggling. He said, "When you are fighting crime, what color cape do you wear?" Howls. Everyone was laughing. Kelvin said, "Or do you wear those tights like Spider-Man and Daredevil and them?" "Whoa, not Daredevil," Manny said. "The girl in that movie, the one from Alias, she took out more bad guys than Ben Affleck did." Again, lots of allusions of former characters that are in um, other movies or other texts. Michael was throwing a ball high into the air, straight up and catching it, sometimes behind his back, doing his best to ignore them. "You know," he said finally, as if talking to the sky, "maybe the real Daredevil will be the guy who has to lead off against me today." Everyone made a low woo sound. "In that case," Manny said, "it's a good thing Kel begged to hit first today." "Did not," Kelvin said. "Did too. Did not infinity," Kel said, as if slam dunking the word infinity. "That's the only time I'd ever ask to hit against Aurora. By the way, on the 12th of infinity." "I promise I won't throw hard," Michael said, heading for the mound as Manny got into his squat behind home plate. Kelvin was still shaking his head as he watched the guys going out into the field, deserting him. "Your half speed is faster than most guys' full speed, Arroyo, so don't be giving me none of your 'I won't throw hard.'" He reluctantly went over to the screen behind home plate where they'd all stacked their bats. "Just don't be trying for that magic number today," he said. 80, Manny said. 80 miles per hour. That's really fast for a kid. The past couple of years, there had been more and more games from the Little League World Series on television, starting with the sectional qualifiers. Manny's family had cable, so he would invite Michael over to their apartment to watch the games on ESPN and ESPN2. And they would talk about this year, the year when they were sure they would make it far enough in the tournament to get on TV themselves. And in all the games they had watched, and Manny watched a lot more than Michael did, there had never been a time when one pitcher's fastball has been measured at 80 miles per hour. They had seen Danny Almonte, the star pitcher from another Bronx team, the kid who got even more famous when they found out he was 14 instead of 12 the year he was pitching all his no-hitters, get to 75 miles an hour. Manny said he remembered someone he described as a big old boy from Kentucky putting up what he called a double seven, so 77, but no one had ever hit 80. 80 was the magic number for Little League pitchers, the way 100 was for radar guns in the big leagues, except, Manny said, hitting 80 at their age was really the same as someone older hitting 110. That was his theory. Manny had theories about almost everything under the sun Michael knew. Here was another, that Michael hit 80 all the time, even if they didn't have television cameras or radar guns covering the Modell monuments or the Clippers. Manny said that he didn't need no stinking gun for his Pudge Rodriguez mitt to know how fast Michael was throwing. All right, so we're going to go and skip to page 21 to about the middle of page 21. What we are skipping is just Manny giving signals, and it talks about Michael throwing and how he doesn't want to throw too hard, but he does strike out a lot of them, and therefore the outfield's not getting a whole lot of play. So on page 21, Anthony says, "I should have brought my homework." He was in the outfield, a little bit bored. Anthony had said when he first got to the outfield, refusing to move more than 10 yards back from second base. "You don't do homework," Manny reminded him. "Well, if I did," Anthony said, "this would be a perfect time to catch up on it." After a few lob balls, Kel said, "Okay, I don't want any more of your pity. Go ahead and gun it." Michael made a show of rubbing up the old ball they were using. First, you don't want to hit because you say, I throw too hard. Now you say, I'm throwing too easy. You're giving me, Manny, what's he giving me here? You're the one with the words. A mixed message? Exactly, Michael said. You're giving me a mixed message. Kel, smiling out at him, made a show like he was about to give Michael an upraised middle finger. Oh, like to give you something more than that? Kel said. Hey, Michael said. There could be kids watching. I thought we were kids, Manny said. Nah, Kel said. We're much cooler than that. We are so cool, Manny said. Cooler than LL Cool J, Kel said. Another illusion. You know who LL Cool J is? Anthony, who had the deepest voice of them all, of all of them, had come into the infield. Now he made his voice even deeper, trying to make himself sound like a TV announcer. Hey, he said, all you South Bronx Clippers, where are you going as soon as you kick a little more butt? Disney World? Kel said. Anthony made a sound like a game show buzzer. That meant wrong answer. Where are we going? He asked again. In one voice, Anthony's included, they yelled, Williamsport! And again, Williamsport is where the Little League World Series is held, and that's in Pennsylvania. Anthony ran back out to center. Manny got back into his squat. Then Michael threw a real number one to Kel that he missed by a mile. That's a fastball. As if he were swinging at the sound of the ball going past him, not at anything he saw. That wasn't the best part of the pitch. The best part of the pitch was that Michael's best buddy Manny, who thought he was used to Michael's heat, who bragged on being the only guy on District 22 who could even think about handling Michael's heat, got knocked back so hard from the force of the pitch that he ended up sitting down. Michael started in front of the mound. Are you okay? He said. Fine, Manny said. He just sat there as if nothing happened, perfectly relaxed, staring at the ball in his glove. Absolutely fine, he said. Then he popped to his feet. Manny was agile for someone with a body shaped like a fire hydrant. Only Michael, of all of his friends and teammates, knew about the dance classes he took, the ones he even admitted to Michael he liked, because they were a way for him to show off how light he was on his feet, not just some lump behind the plate. A guy who stayed in one place for so much of a baseball game loved to move, Michael knew. He brought the ball out of the mound himself, handed it to Michael, and said, 80. Michael looked around. Did I miss the guy with the jugs gun? That's the guy who records how fast someone throws. It was one of the first radar guns he'd ever heard them talking about on radio. I told you, Manny said. I don't need no stinking gun. He put his pudge mitt between him and Michael. I got this, he said, and this never lies. He yelled at Anthony Ferrero to come in and hit if he wanted, then walked back to the plate. 80, Michael heard him say. You are going to finish this chapter in your quiz, your formative assessment today. But what I want to do, Manny talked about his glove was a pudge glove, pudge mitt, which is another word for glove. And it makes me wonder, like, who Pudge, maybe Pudge was, there's some pictures. Maybe Pudge was a player. What makes it a pudge mitt? I'm going to be more specific. Who is Pudge baseball player? See if it's named after. So take a look here. We have a pitcher or a catcher. It looks like Pudge was a catcher from the for the Texas Rangers, and his name was Ivan Rodriguez. His nickname was Pudge, and he was a former Major League Baseball catcher. So they named, I guess, a catcher's glove after him. So that's why. So I just built some background knowledge today. Hopefully you found something you may want to learn some more about and take an opportunity to do that. You will finish this chapter during your assessment today. All right, thank you for listening.